Alrighty, here we go. Getting into big brain stuff. Here we go. So there's going to be parts of this lesson that are super easy, and then there are other parts that are going to require some thinking and some work. So with that being said, I want you to think about this. Sometimes we don't get things at first. We just have to keep doing it over and over again. Repetition is a mother of skill. You'll get this, no problem. Follow what I'm doing. If you don't understand, it might take a little bit, but have confidence that you can do it. So as I said, some of these are going to be easy. We're going to be doing adding and subtracting of mixed numbers. Now, things are easy when we have the same denominator. And adding, just always remember, adding is the easiest. We don't have to do anything. We have these are our mixed numbers, which is a whole number and a fraction, whole number and a fraction. We're going to add the 5 and the 3 gives you 8. And then remember from our previous lessons that we add the numerators, which is 2, and keep the denominator the same. Pretty simple. Take a look at that. We're going to be doing that, and that's no problem. Moving on to the next one. We have like denominators, which means we can add this. We don't have to do anything. That's a 5th grade thing. But now we're going to add the whole numbers. The 3 and the 2 gives us 5. We're going to add the 4 and the 3, which is 7. And then we have the common denominator, 8. Okay? So far, so good. Moving on to the next one. We just add our whole numbers. And since this does not have a fraction, we don't need to worry about it because we're adding. And then the only fraction we have is the 3/4. Now, here's where we start to get into some tricky stuff. Watch this. There is no whole number except for 2. And then we have the common denominator, 12. And then we have 8 plus 11 is 19. Now, here's what you need to know. We need to make this improper fraction simplified. Can't we pull 12 twelfths out of 19? So can I do 19 minus 12? 19 twelfths minus 12 twelfths is going to give you... Okay, here we go. One of the things that you want to notice is you see this 12 here. We see the 19, so we have an improper fraction. Since we're adding the two fractions, what you need to understand is that we can pull out one whole and add it to this whole number. So if we do that, we're going to take out 12 twelfths, which is going to make this 2 go to a 3. And that means I have 7 twelfths left over. So my answer is going to be 3 and 7 twelfths. We'll come into this a couple more times, but pay attention to it, making sure that you understand it. Moving on to the number 5 one. Right here, we have no whole numbers, but a 6. We have 6 and the common denominator 6. And 3 plus 1 is 4. 6 and 4, 6. Moving on to the next one. We have 6 plus 9 is 15. And then we have the common denominator 12. And then we have 6 plus 11 is 17. Again, we have our improper fraction here, which means that we can do the same thing. We can pull out a twelfths. 17 twelfths, I'm going to take away from 12 twelfths, because that equals one whole, gives us 5 twelfths. Now I'm going to take this one whole and add it to my 15, which gives me 16, and then the remainder is 5 twelfths. Now, as I said, it's going to take you a little bit to figure this out, but you'll get it over time. Now, when we're getting into subtracting, this is a whole different ball game, and the best way for me to describe it is when you get onto the right side of the equation. Sometimes you have people that like to do this, okay, which is up and down. I prefer the up and down method. If you have the fraction on the top is bigger than the fraction on the bottom, you just subtract. So watch this. 11 minus 7 is 4. And then we don't have a fraction here, so we're just going to bring down the 1/3. That is the correct way. That will change, though. Here we go. I'm going to put this over here. 9.5 minus 1. 9 minus 1 is 8, and I'm just going to bring down the half. If we had a fraction down here and not up there, I'm going to show you what to do. Next up, put it up and down. 10 and 3/4 minus 6. This is going to be 10 minus 6 is 4, and then bring down the 3/4. Notice how it's a bigger number up on top. Again, put them up and down. This fraction goes on top. 4/8, 12 and 4/8 minus 9. What is 12 minus 9? That is 3, and bring down the 4/8. Okay, that's pretty simple. That's no big deal. Now, here's where it gets a little bit tricky. Watch this. Now, if you don't get this, and especially when it comes, keep this sheet of paper for when you're doing your IXL lesson and quiz. So that way you can take a look at the example. Let this digest. Think about this. Sit back and think about this. We're going to put this 19 and 5/8 up on the top. Subtract the 9, and then we have 7/8. Okay, here we go. Now, 19 can be taken away from 9, but here's the deal. 5 is not bigger than 7. So no different than regrouping and subtraction like this. Let's go 100 minus 98. No different than we would have to regroup or borrow like this. This 0 cannot be taken away from 9, so borrow from the hundreds to make that 10. And then wait a second, this 0 needs help from the 10 spot, so that's going to make this 9 and that 10. Now the top is bigger than the bottom, and we can subtract. 2, 0. Now, keep this same thought in mind, except for when it comes to subtracting the fractions, we need to borrow from here. Ooh, this is a tricky one. Okay, watch what I do. If I didn't have to borrow for this fraction, I could just take away. In fact, okay, we'll do it. Come back to this after I do this next one too. So what I'm going to have to do is, since if I was to take away from here and make this 8, it's not big enough, and I would have to add. Let's just go here. I'm going to take a whole number away from here, and I'm going to give it to my fraction, which is 8/8. Isn't that one whole? Isn't that 8/8 one whole? Now I'm going to add it to this, so that way I can subtract. No different than you did over here. You added these guys. But let's continue. 5 plus 8 is 13. That common denominator is the same. I'm going to bring this 7/8 over. Now this is big enough to subtract. Okay, so we'll go like this. 13 minus 7 is 6. We keep the 8 that is the same. 18 minus 9 is 9. Okay, I know this is new. You'll get used to it the more you do it. Here we go. Take this number, put it on top. We're going to make it 1/4. Now, we're going to subtract that away from 8 and 3/4. Now, this 1 is not big enough to be taken away, so we need to make this more. So we need to regroup. Take away from the 10, make that a 9, and we're going to add 4/4 here because that would make one whole. Now watch what I do. 1 plus 4 is 5. Keep that 4 the same. I'm going to bring this 3/4 over. Now the top is bigger than the bottom. 5 minus 3 is 2. Keep that fourths the same. Now I can subtract this. 9 minus 8 is 1. Going to the next problem. Watch this. Take this number, put it on top. 14, 5/12. We're going to subtract 7 and 10/12. Well, this is too big. I can't take this away, so I'm going to have to borrow from this spot. So let's do this first. We'll just borrow from here. That makes this 3. And since I got to add, I'm taking 1 whole out of this as a fraction. It's going to be 12 over 12. Now I can add this to this fraction, so I can take away from this one down here. 5 plus 12 is 17. Keep that common denominator the same. I'm going to bring this over so I can just subtract it and have it look good. 17 minus 10 is 7. Bring that 12 down because they're common denominators. Now, we're going to take that 1 there, put it here. 13 minus 7 is 6. So that is my answer. If you are going, I don't really get this, pause. Go back. I would suggest taking your time. Look at these last 3 problems and seeing what I'm doing by taking out a whole with a numerator and a denominator that are the same, so that way I can add to it and then subtract. Let's go to this next one. Always put this one to the left, up top first. 19 and 4, 6. Minus 10 and 5, 6. This 5 is too big to take away from there. So let's take a whole away. And that whole would be 6 over 6. Now, we're going to add these two together. 4 plus 6 is 10. Common denominator stays the same. I'm going to bring this 5, 6 over. Now, this is big enough to take away from there. 10 minus 5 is 5. Keep that 6 the same. Going to subtract my whole numbers. 8 minus 0 is 8. 1 minus 1 is 0. So there's your answer. Do me a favor, do not turn this in until you are done working through your iExcel lessons. You can take a look at this step by step. Let this digest. You're going to want to learn this because this is a very big concept, especially going into 5th grade. This is one of the biggest things that you'll be learning. So if you get this down, where you only got about 6 steps, you're going to be better off next year when you have about 26 to 34 steps. There's a lot of steps. So, but if you get this, you'll do really well. Get into the number side.